And no, this doesn't mean you abandon growth or stop reaching for better outcomes. It means you stop requiring life to go your way before you allow yourself to feel peace. You begin to see that peace is not the prize you get when everything aligns, it's the soil you plant yourself in, even when the winds are wild and the path uncertain. Acceptance creates space for clarity, for wisdom, for rest. It breaks the exhausting cycle of resistance and replaces it with softness. And in that softness, something miraculous happens. You move forward, not in a panic, not in a rush to fix everything, but with grace, with steadiness, with trust. Because once you stop needing to wrestle life into submission, you discover something far more powerful. You were never meant to win against life. You were meant to walk with it. When was the last time you truly lived a single moment, free from worry, untouched by fear, not the kind of moment where you smiled for show or forced a laugh to hide the ache inside, but a real moment? One where you felt weightless, unburdened, fully present in your own skin. A moment where nothing was missing and you weren't trying to fix or chase or prove anything, just existing peacefully in the now. For most of us, life feels like one long waiting room. We sit quietly telling ourselves, just a little longer. We postpone joy, delay rest. We make silent bargains with the future, convinced that once everything falls perfectly into place, once we're successful, healed, understood, loved, secure, then and only then, we'll finally allow ourselves to breathe easy, to exhale, to feel peace. But that elusive perfect moment, it rarely comes. And if it does, it slips through our fingers before we've had the chance to fully feel it. Because the truth is, perfection is a moving target, and the longer we chase it, the more exhausted we become. Buddhist wisdom gently reminds us of something profoundly liberating. Peace isn't a prize waiting at the end of some distant road. It's not something you earn by controlling every outcome or solving every problem. It's something you return to, something that already lives inside you, hidden beneath the noise of striving and the tension of trying so hard to hold everything together. Peace arises when we stop running, when we stop resisting what is and soften into the present moment, as messy and uncertain as it might be. It's found here, now, in the simple act of being, of noticing your breath, of releasing your grip, of letting life be what it is, without needing to fight it. So if you're tired of living in your head, tired of overthinking, overanalyzing, and endlessly bracing for what might go wrong, then maybe, just maybe, this is your invitation. Maybe your soul has been waiting for this reminder that you don't have to wait for the storm to pass to feel alive again. You can begin now. These 7 lessons aren't promises of a perfect life, but they may be guideposts back to yourself, back to presence, back to peace. 1. The present moment is the only safe place you'll ever have. There is a quiet but life-altering truth at the heart of Buddhist wisdom. Real peace, deep, lasting peace, can only ever be found in the present moment. At first glance, that may seem obvious, even simplistic, but the more you sit with it, the more it begins to untangle everything you thought you knew about safety, freedom, and control. It's not just a teaching, it's a doorway, and once you walk through it, you begin to see life with clearer eyes. The past? It's gone. Nothing more than a gallery of memories, some tender, some painful, all of them unchangeable. The future? It hasn't arrived. It lives only in your imagination, built from guesses, projections, and what-ifs. And yet, these 2 ghost lands, past and future, are where most of us spend our lives. Because worry doesn't care that the past is over or that the future is still unfolding. Worry has no allegiance to truth. It builds entire worlds out of fog and fear. It spins stories in your head about things that might happen, about threats that could appear, about disasters that haven't happened, but already feel real in your body. And the more you engage with these thoughts, the more your nervous system reacts as though you're living through them. Your heart races, your breath shortens, your shoulders tighten. Even when nothing is happening, especially when nothing is happening, your body starts preparing for war. This is the great illusion of worry. It makes you suffer over events that don't exist. It hijacks your peace with scenarios that are only shadows in your mind. But everything begins to shift the moment you come back. Really come back to the present, to this breath, this step, this exact second. The air as it moves through your nostrils, the ground beneath your feet, the soft hum of life around you. No catastrophes here, no chaos, just this, and in this, you are safe. Because the present moment isn't just a concept, it's a sanctuary, a real living space where life is actually unfolding. It's the only place anything real ever happens. Everything else is mental noise, and here's the powerful truth. Worry cannot survive in this space. It needs the future to breathe. It feeds on projection and imagination. But when you're rooted in reality, fully aware, fully here, there's no soil left for fear to grow in. Yes, your mind will still whisper. It will still try to pull you back into its stories. What if tomorrow everything falls apart? What if you're not prepared? But with practice, you'll learn to answer gently, with steadiness. I don't need to carry tomorrow right now. I'm here. I'm breathing. And that's enough. The more often you return to this space, the more familiar it becomes. Like returning to a home you didn't realize you'd been missing. It becomes your anchor in the storm, your safe haven, and slowly you begin to realize something sacred. You were never meant to live in fear of what might come. You were meant to live in the softness of now, in the freedom that was always waiting for you, right here. 3. Acceptance is not giving up. It's giving yourself permission to breathe. There's a quiet misunderstanding that so many of us carry, that acceptance means weakness, that to accept something painful or unexpected is to wave a white flag, to admit defeat, to give up hope of changing it. But in the deeper teachings of Buddhism, acceptance isn't about resignation, it's about liberation. It's not an act of giving up. It's an act of setting yourself free. Acceptance is what happens when you stop clinging to the illusion that you can or must control everything. It's the gentle, courageous choice to stop fighting reality and allow what is to simply be, not because you've stopped caring, but because you've finally grown tired of holding your breath through every twist and turn of life. When you constantly resist what life brings, when you brace yourself against every loss, every delay, every imperfection, you build a quiet war inside your own body. That tension, that inner tightness, that silent scream of this shouldn't be happening, that's where suffering is born. Not in the event itself, but in the way your mind fights it. You suffer not because life is unbearable, but because you're using all your strength trying to push back what has already arrived. But acceptance. Acceptance is the moment you soften, the moment you stop pretending, stop demanding, stop wishing things were anything other than what they are. It's the moment you exhale and say, okay, this is happening. I don't have to like it. I don't have to approve of it, but I will stop denying it. And in that moment, something subtle but profound shifts. You unclench, you unarm. You release the rope you've been tugging on so hard, and in that release, you can finally breathe again. So much of our emotional pain doesn't come from the event itself. It comes from the endless mental loop that follows. A relationship ends, and instead of grieving, we obsess. Why did this happen? Could I have prevented it? Was it my fault? Is it really over? We replay conversations. We rewrite the past in our heads, hoping that if we think hard enough, we can change what has already occurred. But the past is sealed, and the more we resist it, the more we suffer. Acceptance doesn't mean you stop feeling. It doesn't mean you stop hoping. It means you stop fighting what is. You stop arguing with the present moment as though it were a mistake, and that's when true healing begins. That's when you stop trying to escape your emotions and instead learn to sit with them without judgment, without guilt, just presence. And no, this doesn't mean you abandon growth or stop reaching for better outcomes. It means you stop requiring life to go your way before you allow yourself to feel peace. You begin to see that peace is not the prize you get when everything aligns. It's the soil you plant yourself in, even when the winds are wild and the path uncertain. Acceptance creates space for clarity, for wisdom, for rest. It breaks the exhausting cycle of resistance and replaces it with softness. And in that softness, something miraculous happens. You move forward, not in a panic, not in a rush to fix everything, but with grace, with steadiness, with trust. Because once you stop needing to wrestle life into submission, you discover something far more powerful. You were never meant to win against life. You were meant to walk with it. 4. Not every thought deserves your attention or your belief. The human mind is a brilliant, intricate instrument, capable of imagination, creativity, reason, and reflection. But it's also a noisy place, a chaotic echo chamber filled with commentary, speculation, worry, memory, and doubt. Every single day, thousands upon thousands of thoughts drift through your awareness. Some are useful. Many are repetitive. Far too many are rooted in fear, insecurity, and the deep ache of never feeling quite enough. And here lies one of the most life-changing truths found in Buddhist wisdom: you are not your thoughts. Let that sink in, not as a nice idea, but as something felt. You are not the voice in your head. You are the one who hears it. Just because a thought appears doesn't make it true, and it certainly doesn't mean it deserves your full attention, your emotional energy, or your belief. But worry doesn't like to be questioned. It shows up subtly, almost innocently, with a quiet whisper. What if something goes wrong? And before you realize it, you're miles down, a mental road paved with worst-case scenarios. Your heart races, your stomach tightens. You begin preparing for a disaster that hasn't happened and may never happen. You feel anxious and unsafe, not because something real is unfolding, but because your mind has taken a story and convinced your body to believe it. This is the danger of giving every thought the power of truth. When you blindly believe every voice in your head, you start to confuse mental noise with reality, and reality. This moment, this breath, this stillness is almost always gentler than the stories your mind tells. Buddhist teachings offer us a beautiful image. Your mind is like the vast, open sky. Your thoughts, they're just clouds. Some are soft and luminous, others heavy and gray, but none of them last. None of them define the sky. The sky remains unchanged and untouched, no matter what floats through it. In the same way, your awareness, your deepest self, is far vaster and more grounded than any single thought. When you begin to observe thoughts rather than get caught up in them, you develop mindfulness. You start to see thoughts for what they really are: temporary mental weather, not absolute truth. So when your mind says, "I'm not good enough," or "I can't do this," or "everything is about to fall apart," you don't have to fight it. You don't have to panic. You don't even need to silence it. You can simply pause, breathe, and say to yourself with quiet strength, "This is just a thought. It's not a fact. I don't have to believe it." That simple act, naming a thought as a thought, breaks the spell. It stops the chain reaction before it spirals, and over time, a space opens up between you and your thinking mind. You stop being dragged by every emotion. You stop reacting to every fear. You begin to move through life with steadiness and clarity, not because your mind is suddenly quiet, but because you're no longer imprisoned by it. That's the gift of mindfulness. It doesn't erase your thoughts. It transforms your relationship with them. You begin to live with awareness rather than reactivity, with choice rather than compulsion, with presence rather than panic. And when you learn to stay rooted in that stillness, even as thoughts come and go, you reclaim your peace. Worry no longer rules you. The noise of the mind softens into background sound, and you calm, clear, grounded, return again and again to the quiet strength that was always within you. Not because life is perfect, but because your mind no longer needs to be. 5. Impermanence means your fear cannot last forever. One of the most liberating and compassionate truths offered by Buddhist wisdom is the truth of impermanence, the quiet understanding that nothing in life remains fixed. Everything changes, everything moves. People grow, emotions evolve, circumstances shift. Just like the turning of the seasons, life is always in motion. Nothing, no matter how intense or overwhelming, stays the same forever. And yet, when fear wraps itself around your chest, when anxiety takes hold like a storm in your mind, it feels eternal. It convinces you that this is how it will always be, as if the worry has taken root in your soul, set up camp in your chest, and is never going to leave. But here is the deeper truth: no matter how heavy the fear feels, no matter how loud the anxiety becomes, it will pass. It always does. Think back. Remember those times in your life when everything felt like it was falling apart, when you were lost in heartbreak, drowning in uncertainty, gripped by panic or sadness, so deep you weren't sure you'd find your way out. In those moments, it felt endless. And yet, here you are, still standing, still breathing, still becoming. You survived what once felt impossible, and now, those same moments that nearly broke you exist only as memory. That alone reveals something quietly powerful. Your emotions, no matter how fierce or all-consuming, are temporary. Even the deepest sorrow has an end. Even the sharpest fear has a rhythm, a beginning, a middle, and an end. When you begin to truly understand this, your entire relationship with emotion shifts. You no longer say, "I am anxious." Instead, you realize, anxiety is moving through me right now. It is not who I am, and it will not stay. You stop fusing your identity with your emotions, and you start creating space between what you feel and who you are. The real suffering begins when we forget this truth. When we forget impermanence, we believe we are stuck. We panic because we think the pain is permanent, that the heaviness will never lift, that we'll always feel like this. But the moment you remember impermanence, everything softens. You realize this is a moment, not a life sentence. This is a wave, not the ocean. And this isn't just a nice idea to comfort you in hard times, it's a truth that life shows us again and again. Just look around. The storm never lingers forever. The darkest night always gives way to morning. Spring always returns. The trees shed and bloom again. Even in nature, change is the only constant. This truth invites a gentler way of being with your pain. You stop rushing your healing. You stop demanding that discomfort disappear immediately. You learn to sit with it, not with fear, but with patience. You breathe through it. You let it move through your body like a wave, rising, peaking, then slowly dissolving into stillness. You don't fight the wave, you float with it. You trust its rhythm. And that trust changes everything. Because now you know, really know, that you are not trapped. You are simply passing through a moment. And that moment, like all the ones before it, is already shifting, already softening, already on its way out. Fear loses its grip when you remember this. No emotion has the power to last forever, and your peace doesn't come from escaping difficult moments. It comes from remembering that even the hardest ones will not stay. So when worry shows up, when your chest tightens and your mind begins spinning stories about what might go wrong, take a step back. Place your hand over your heart. Remind yourself gently, this is only a moment. It will not last. I have survived so many before, and I will move through this too. That simple reminder, spoken with awareness and care, can bring incredible peace to your inner world, because when you stop fearing your fear and you start trusting the nature of impermanence, you unlock a kind of inner calm that no storm can shake. 6. Let go of control that was never your burden to carry. One of the greatest sources of worry in life comes from the illusion of control, the belief that if we think hard enough, plan far enough, or try long enough, We can make everything go exactly as we want. We tell ourselves that if we just stay alert, we can prevent bad things from happening, avoid pain, and keep everything and everyone in perfect order. But this belief, while understandable, is a heavy burden to carry, because no matter how hard you try, there will always be things beyond your control, other people's choices, unexpected events, shifting circumstances, and even your own emotions at times. Trying to control everything doesn't bring peace. It creates anxiety. It builds a life based on fear, not freedom. Buddhism teaches us a different way. It encourages us to act with intention and wisdom, but without clinging to the outcome. This means you do your best in every situation. You show up fully. You give your energy to what matters. You respond with mindfulness, but then you release the rest. You trust that the river of life will carry you where you need to go, even if the path looks different than you imagined. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop suffering over what isn't yours to control. It's not weakness. It's maturity. It's strength of a different kind, the kind that comes from knowing that peace is more important than perfection. Think about how many nights you've stayed awake, replaying conversations, stressing over decisions you can't undo, or fearing outcomes that haven't even happened. All that energy, all that tension, and yet nothing changed except your exhaustion. The truth is, the future is not something you can fully shape with worry. It's shaped by presence, action, and trust. And when you realize that, you can begin to release your grip. You can breathe again. You can walk more lightly through your life. Letting go of control also means surrendering the idea that you must be perfect in order for things to work out. It means accepting that mistakes will happen, plans will shift, and uncertainty is part of the journey. But instead of resisting that truth, you begin to make peace with it. You start trusting that life has its own intelligence, that there's a deeper order behind what appears to be chaos, and that trust becomes your anchor in times of change. You don't need to figure everything out right now. You don't need to have all the answers. What you need is to return to yourself again and again and ask, am I doing my part with presence and care? If the answer is yes, then let the rest unfold. Give life room to breathe. Give people room to be who they are, and give yourself permission to not know everything. The freedom that comes from letting go is not the kind that floats above life. It's the kind that sinks deeper into it. It's the kind that allows you to show up with more love, more clarity, and more peace, because your energy is no longer wasted trying to control what was never yours to begin with. 7. Speak kindly to the voice inside you that worries. Most people carry an inner voice that constantly worries, questions, doubts, and prepares for the worst. It shows up in moments of silence when you're alone with your thoughts, or when something uncertain appears on the horizon. It whispers things like, "Are you sure you can handle this?" Or "What if everything falls apart?" This voice is not cruel by intention. It doesn't speak to hurt you. In fact, it believes it's protecting you. It tries to prepare you for possible danger, heartbreak, or disappointment. But over time, that same voice becomes a source of stress and exhaustion. It keeps you in a state of constant alertness, draining your peace and robbing you of joy. Buddhism teaches compassion, not only toward others, but toward yourself, and especially toward the parts of you that are scared. Instead of fighting this inner voice or silencing it through force or frustration, the more healing approach is to meet it with kindness and understanding, just like you would comfort a frightened child who doesn't understand the world yet. You can begin to speak to your inner self with calm reassurance. You can say, "I know you're afraid. I know you're trying to keep me safe, but we are okay right now. We don't need to panic. We're just going to breathe and take one step at a time." When you shift from judgment to compassion, something powerful happens inside. That fearful voice no longer needs to scream to be heard. It softens. It begins to trust you, because for most people, their inner voice is loud. Not because it's strong, but because it feels ignored and unseen. When you acknowledge it with kindness instead of anger, when you sit with your fear instead of pushing it away, you create space for peace. You build a relationship with yourself that is based on trust, not control. This doesn't mean you indulge every fear or let anxiety take over. It means you learn to be present with it. Like a calm teacher helping a worried student, you stop asking, "Why am I like this?" and start saying, "It's okay to feel this way, and I can still move forward." That shift is the essence of Buddhist self-compassion, meeting your inner world with mindfulness and mercy instead of shame and resistance. And over time, as you continue this practice, the inner voice that once filled you with fear becomes quieter. Not because the world has changed, but because your relationship to your own mind has healed. You've become your own safe space. You've learned that you don't need to fight yourself to grow, you need to hold yourself through the growing. And that kind of gentleness isn't weakness. It's the deepest form of strength, because when you can sit beside your own fear without running from it, you are no longer controlled by it, you are free. 8. Joy is not a reward for a perfect life. It is a practice you can begin today. So many of us spend our lives chasing a future version of happiness, dangling it just beyond the next milestone, the next achievement, the next moment of calm. We tell ourselves, "I'll be happy when things settle down, when I've succeeded, when the chaos is gone, when everything is finally in place." But that day, the one where everything is perfectly aligned, rarely arrives, because life, by its very nature, is in motion. Something is always unfinished. Something is always shifting. The to-do list grows. The heart heals in layers. The future remains unknowable. If you wait for your life to be flawless before allowing yourself to feel joy, you will wait a very long time, maybe forever. Buddhism offers a different path, one both humbling and empowering. Joy, it says, is not a finish line. It is not a rare treasure granted only to those who have solved every problem or tamed every storm. Joy is a practice, a choice, a gentle turning toward the moment you're in. It's not a reward you earn after a life of struggle. It's a way of living that begins exactly where you are, as imperfect as that may be. And the most profound joy? It isn't loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't always arrive with fanfare or a grand sense of meaning. Sometimes it slips in quietly, through the steam rising from your tea, through the softness of your pillow at night, through the sunlight brushing against your skin. It lives in the sound of the wind, the stillness of a deep breath, the pause between one heartbeat and the next. These are not small things. They are sacred doorways, and they do not wait for a perfect life. They wait for your presence. This is the shift to realize you don't need to fix everything before you let joy in. You don't need to eliminate every fear or resolve every inner conflict before you smile. You don't need every answer before you feel peace. You don't need to heal every wound before you laugh from your belly or sigh with relief. You only need to stop postponing happiness, because joy is never somewhere else. It isn't hidden in the future. It's here, now, within reach. Not as a grand event, but as a quiet practice of noticing, of softening, of allowing. And when you begin to choose it, even in small ways, even for just a few breaths at a time, joy slowly becomes your companion, not your prize. Not because your life is perfect, but because you stopped waiting for it to be. Joy lives in the now. And when you learn to touch it, even while life is still messy, unfinished, unresolved, something sacred begins to unfold. You begin to reclaim your power, not by fixing everything, but by changing how you see everything. To practice joy is to retrain the mind, to gently guide your attention toward the light, even when shadows are present. It's not about denying pain or pretending everything is perfect. It's about allowing yourself to notice beauty even while you're healing. It's about pausing long enough to feel gratitude for what is, even as you wait for what's next. Joy is in the soft steam rising from your morning cup of tea. It's in the laughter that escapes you despite the weight you're carrying. It's in the quiet pride of having made it through another hard day. Over time, this becomes more than a habit. It becomes a way of being, a way of seeing. And slowly, something remarkable happens. Worry begins to loosen its grip. Not because you forced it out, but because your awareness has shifted. Your mind begins to find new footing, new pathways, new anchors. It learns how to rest in the good, no matter how fleeting or small. You start to see that life doesn't need to be flawless to be meaningful. You realize that even in the middle of uncertainty, love can still bloom in your chest. Peace can still land gently on your shoulders. You begin to understand that the most powerful joy often isn't loud or grand. It doesn't shout, doesn't demand attention. Sometimes, the deepest joy is simply being here, breathing, feeling, noticing, living. When you begin to meet joy like this, softly, consistently, without needing a reason, you discover something that changes everything. Happiness was never gone. It didn't disappear. It wasn't lost in the chaos or buried beneath the pain. It was here, all along, waiting, quietly, patiently, asking only that you slow down long enough to see it. And in that sacred noticing, something shifts in you. You stop chasing happiness as a destination and start feeling it as a presence. You begin to live, not driven by fear, not grasping for control, but rooted in quiet appreciation, in gentle trust. This is how joy returns, not as something you win or earn, but as something you remember.